Good morning friends, welcome to the class of marketing research and analysis. As you remember, we had started our discussion with what is marketing research, what is a market and market research accordingly, and how they are important, why it is important for executives, students, PhD scholars, everybody, right. So, we have just started a class, and in which today what we do is we will go across one of the important things in it, the research approach. So, what kind of a research approach should a researcher have, should a researcher follow, and what kind of the research design should it follow accordingly, right. So, we will be discussing on these things. Let us start with the research approach. So, what is a research approach basically, and why should a researcher understand about developing a research approach? A research approach you can understand from a simple term is a logical flow, or a logical path, right, that a researcher should follow in order to conduct a study. Okay. If you let us say for example, sometimes research could be theory based, sometimes research can come out of an observation, it could be several ways. So, what is the best research approach, what is the best path one should follow, that is of concern. Okay. Now, let us look at it here, and it says, look, the competition has a big stupid product, we need a big stupid product of our own and we need it now. So, now when I am saying this, so it suggests how people try to approach towards a particular problem in hand. So, as I said, it depends on the situation where the researcher is in, it is in a practical empirical situation, or it is a theoretically observational or research oriented where it is being conducted, that is to be seen. So, it is the way of dealing with a particular research problem. So, our approach, it is saying how do we go up the ladder, go up the stair and reach to the goal. Now, let us look at this approach. How effective is this approach? Now, although this is humorous, it is very true, right. So, now Uncle Sam, the big brother, is hitting at terrorism in a way which is only increasing the hatred in the society, right. So, is it the right way to be tackled with terrorism? That is a question that we will think. Is it the right approach? Could it be no other approach? Is there no other approach that can be dealt with this problem? We will see that exactly, we will discuss about these things. So, what are the types of research approaches? As I said, basically it is a logical flow, right, logical flow. So, on basis of that, three types of approaches have been basically said to be, any research starts with this, an inductive, a deductive, right, the order does not matter, and abductive. Okay. So, what is this? Let us start with the first one, deduce. The meaning, if you understand the term deductive, it comes from the word deduce. You are deducing something, right. So, when you are deducing something, let us see what happens. It says a deductive approach is concerned with developing a hypothesis based on an existing theory. Now, that is very important. The word theory is very important and needs to be underlined, it is important. So, that means there exists a theory, and on basis of this theory we are trying to develop an hypothesis and then design a research strategy to test the hypothesis. So, let us say, take this case example which I have given, impact of bonus on sales performance in the banking industry, for example. Now, theory says that there is a carrot and stick approach. For example, you can provide carrots and you can motivate people or motivate the objects and they would be working better. So, now on basis of this theory we will say that if bonus is given to people or the salesmen, their performance would increase. Now this, if you look at it, how does it move? From the theory we develop the hypothesis, on basis of the hypothesis we conduct some test, we collect some data, right, from the field or maybe secondary, primary, that is a secondary, that is a separate issue, but we will conduct some test and collect some data, and then we will analyze this data, which is generally as per my knowledge I have seen people are more interested to understand about the only the analysis part, right. But no research can be complete without understanding the ground theory or the preparation of the whole research problem. So if you have not prepared your research problem well, you will land up into how many problems I even cannot think of. There are lots of problems that can come up, and at the end the result might be completely a lopsided, maybe analysis, an inference with lots of errors into it, right. So it says a deductive approach is concerned with developing a hypothesis from a theory, that means, okay. Now let us look at the inductive approach. Now this inductive approach is a different one. Newton saw that apple was falling on the ground, maybe dozens of people, thousands of people must have seen it, but nobody questioned, Newton questioned it, right, and there from it started the gravitational theory and things like it, right. So when he says, when you observe, that means from an observation, right, you start ending up into a theory, you end into developing a theory from an observation. So it says inductive approach, also known as inductive reasoning, starts with the observations and theories are proposed towards the end of the research process. So theory is an outcome, right, theory is an outcome of the approach, of the observations. So for example, Abraham Maslow said there are different kinds of needs in the society, from very basic needs, right, elementary needs, to last to the self actualization, to reaching the self actualization, where there is a chance for example, there were many great people who were born in a king family, but at the end of the day they gave up everything because they had reached a state of self actualization, self esteem. So they had they had passed through those basic needs and social needs and all these things, and finally they had gotten up to a stage to understand that nothing is more important in life. So self actualization. So similarly Maslow's hierarchy of needs was based on certain observations in the society. He observed certain people and their habits. Similarly the Porter's 5-block model, which is Michael Porter's very famous competitive strategy model, says what are the things affecting an industry: the supplier, the buyer, the fight among the competition, among the rivalry among the firms, the government, right. So different participants are affecting any kind of competition in the market, right. So there is an observation and finally theory. Abductive approach is in between these two, because the third approach has been developed because there has been certain weakness in the inductive and the deductive, okay. As it says, it sets to address the weaknesses associated with the deductive and deductive approaches. Now deductive approach is criticized for the lack of clarity in terms of how to select the theory. Now as we said that it starts with the theory. Now the question is, which theory? How do we know? There are so many theories connected with, let us say, of managing people, for example HR policies, or improving the performance of a machine, right. So because there is a lack of clarity to select theory, there is a criticism against it, right. Similarly the criticism against the inductive reasoning is that no amount of empirical data will necessarily enable theory building, correct. For example, if you go on doing collecting data, and might be they are connected, might be they are not connected, there might not be any correlation between them, right. You are just collecting data without understanding, and at the end you might not be able to generate a theory out of it, because a theory will be only established when there is a pattern. So the pattern, if it is not established, how will we generate a theory out of it? So, that is where comes the requirement of inductive reasoning, abductive reasoning. Okay. So, what is the example I have given here? If you can see, greed greed is the reason behind any recession in the economy, right. So, as I was saying to you, let us take this example of an abductive approach, where we are saying what is the reason behind the recession in the economy. Let us say some of the great recessions that have happened in the world, from the 1929 depression to any financial depression that happened, even the recent subprime crisis that happened. Greed is has been mentioned as one of the reason behind any recession in the economy. So, now this is a I am saying this is a case of an abductive approach, right, which is in between. So, it has taken care of neither there is a you can establish a theory, nor exactly you can deduce anything out. So, that is why we say this is in between and this is an abductive approach. Okay. I will give you some further examples, let us have a look at it. So, as it says, inductive starts with specific observation, general conclusion. Deductive, general rule goes to a specific conclusion, which is always true. Abductive reasoning comes with an incomplete observation. This is an incomplete observation, and whatever we predict can be termed as the best possible prediction. Okay. Now, let us take an example one more. All eagles can fly. Tweety is an eagle. So, therefore, Tweety can fly. So, we are deducing from the statement that all eagles can fly, Tweety is an eagle, so Tweety can fly, right. So, we are deducing it, right. Similarly, let us take an inductive one. All the crows that I have ever seen, all the crows that I have ever seen were black. So, what is my inference drawn? What is the theory I am building? All crows everywhere are black, including ones I have not seen. So, because from the observations I found out, I have made a theory that all crows must be black, because all the ones which I have seen were black. Okay. So, observation towards an inference. Now, let us look at this third case. Now, that is very interesting. The grass outside my window was wet when I woke up this morning. Okay. Known fact. Rain in the night can make grass wet. So, if there is a rain, the grass can become wet. So, there was probably as per abductive inference, we will say there was probably rain in the night. Why? Because it might be possible that somebody had left your tap open, or maybe somebody had sprinkled water, although the chances might be less of it, but still there is a chance. So, we will say there is a probability here, but we are not sure of it. So, that is why this is the one approach which is, I will say, an in between approach. Okay. Now, let us go move ahead. Now, what happens when you conduct a research study and you have gone through all such kind of tests, right, you have done, but what is saying in the humor we say we finally got through all the market research required to launch our new product, but we are retired now. So, that means research does not even allow you to take too much of time, at least in the applied research, in marketing research we cannot take as much as of time we want. It is not possible, right, because things change, cultural changes are happening. For example, if you look at in India, certain some time back, the fashion, the culture, what was there has been a drastic change in it today, right. People are more westernized, people are trying to follow the recent lifestyles which they see elsewhere on TV or internet or anything, right. So, what is the research design now? So, we said with research approach, now what is the design? So, design is more, you can say, a planned network, a planned approach. It is a framework or blueprint for conducting the marketing research project. It details the procedures necessary for obtaining the information needed to solve the marketing research problems. That means, in one way if I say, I will tell that a research design is nothing but it is a road map, it is a road map which tells you what to do, when to do, how to do, and how would you proceed basically, so that you can completely have a proper study, right. Okay. Choice of research design. Suppose it depends on largely on the objective of the research. Now what is your objective? For example, let us say if you are doing an exploratory, you are trying to find out something like you have a deductive approach, you have something, for example you are trying to deduce something from the market, or you want to know something about something, or suppose we do not know what is, there is a market in the even the Africa or Andaman and Nicobar Islands, there could be a people who would try to buy. So we do not know their condition, their traditions, their economical status and all. So when we do not know what kind of research design we will follow, we do not know that also, right. Similarly, sometimes you must have, if you have seen in the last class, I also said one of the classes where I said about paper boat. Paper boat is a company which is trying to touch upon your childhood feelings. How do you when people buy, how do they associate themselves with their childhood memories and all this. So when this company must have started these products, they must have researched what do people exactly look in when they buy, how nostalgic do they get to buy a product. So a wrong decision or a right decision, right. So if you take a wrong route, then you will land up somewhere else which is not desirable, right. Let us see the components, right. So the components are, first, defining. We had started in the class, if you cannot define, your research will never be complete, right. Design the exploratory, descriptive or causal phases. Now when I talk about research design basically can be divided into 3 parts, let us say, right, let us say 3 parts. So what are the 3 parts? Now first is we start with an exploratory research, right. As you can understand from the name, exploratory, it is to explore something, okay. Then we say this is a basically comes under the non-conclusive research, non-conclusive, because there is no conclusion here, right. Then we have another which comes under the conclusive research. Now what comes under the conclusive research? Now one is the descriptive research, and the causal research, okay, causal research. So as I started with, exploratory says, so exploratory says something to explore. Now you need to explore it, right. So in this case, let us finish this with first this one. Design the exploratory, descriptive or causal phases of the research, specify the measurement and scaling procedures. Now for example, how do you want to measure? How would you measure satisfaction, for example? We know how to measure weight, we know how to measure capacity, we know how to measure distance, but how would you measure a social science construct, or let us say social factor, for example satisfaction, honesty, loyalty and all these things. So how would you measure? So you need to have a proper scale for it. In fact, I will spend time on developing a scale, validating a scale and all these things later on, but for the moment let us understand that we need a scale. If we have to compare, for example let us say 2 great personalities from 2 different fields, although it is not possible, but still we have to do it, because let us say there is only one prize to be given. So in such a condition we need to have a scale to standardize their achievements, okay. Then constructing a questionnaire or a form, interview form, or an appropriate form of data collection, right. Then specifying the sampling process. So who is the sample? Sometimes we conduct mistake by understanding not understanding the right sample, okay. And finally what is the sample size, what is the sample size that we need. So in when we do this, we have to be very clear. Suppose I am conducting a research on let us say on men, and men does not include, suppose what is the let us say the economic status, I cannot include a boy of a 12-year-old teen or a 14-year-old teen in that, right, although he is a man, right, he is a genetically or biologically he is a man, but we cannot say he cannot be included into the system in the research. So sample size accordingly, right. Then finally we plan a data analysis. And now let us move to something called although it is not discussed much, but still historical design. Now this guy this is the, like, if you can see the example, this is a diary of a former Nazi, right, where he writes his autobiography. If we must have seen people doing at the end of their career, trying to write all those that they could never speak up, right, very famous politicians, very famous sports people, and finally they try to speak up in their book, autobiography. So, this is something where we try to go into the historical part of the story and try to find out what had happened, how it had happened, and what were the implications and all this, right. When I am classifying the research marketing research design, basically as I had explained before in the board, exploratory and conclusive, descriptive and causal, right. So, descriptive basically, as exploratory was to explore, similarly descriptive is to describe. Now, just tell me, let us understand, if we do not have an idea of anything, how would we describe it? So, the minimum, the starting point, the initiating point of any descriptive research is with the hypothesis that a person has got certain, a researcher has got certain knowledge about the subject, right. Now, that may be, for example, we know that because of a particular kind of promotion, the sales in one market, in a particular market increased. So, we have that knowledge. So, we can assume that even if we use the same promotional measure in this new another market, here it might also increase. So, this is an hypothesis we have designed or generated. Okay. Similarly, causal, the name suggests, is cause and effect. Newton said every action, for every action there is an opposite reaction, equal and opposite reaction, right. Now, when he says this, causal research similarly says there is a cause and effect. For every cause there is an effect, or there is a that means behind every effect there is a cause, sorry, right. So, again how it is divided, we will see cross sectional design, longitudinal designs. So, it depends on the type of the design of the descriptive researchers, right. So, we will look into it slowly, where cross sectional generally means at one point of time you take across a horizontally a long chain of respondents at one point of time, similar. So, there would not be expected to be much of a difference among the respondents views because of the same time frame. Okay. On the other hand, longitudinal design takes up few respondents across the different time periods, so that to see whether there has been any change in their behavior patterns across the different times. So, when we say do this, this is basically, if you can understand, being used in economics. For example, we see the capital, net capital, or the satisfaction on or the inflation in a country or anything. So, all these things, how it has changed across certain years. So, certain only few people or few respondents would be taken and they would be checked across certain number of years, right. We will see that, we will see that. So, as I started with exploratory study, the primary objective, it is very flexible obviously, right. So, you do not know anything here. So, it is a flexible and an evolving approach to understand the marketing phenomena that are inherently difficult to measure. Now, for example, generally it has been seen, when I do not understand how will people react. For example, if you see this discovery of America by Christopher Columbus. So, he did not know what is, he was just going across navigating the world and he suddenly discovered the America. Similarly, photocopying machine, when Carlson developed it, he had no clue that what he was exactly doing, but he thought of maybe possibly he would be able to find out something like this. And so, exploratory research helps to explore, understand the nuances, the integrities of a particular work of research or problem. Okay. Let us take this case. An advertising company got an account, that means they got an account for a new coffee brew, which from Hindustan Unilever, earlier it was called HLL, right, Hindustan Lever, containing chicory. Now, chicory is an ingredient, right. But when this company wanted to make an ad, they found that people had no idea what is chicory, right. The researchers found that virtually no one had heard about chicory. it was not being used and no one seemed to know how to even use it. The result this resulted in the hypothesis that the advertising could depict the chicory ingredient in whatever way the customer wanted. Okay. So, what is happening here? Now, if you see, that means we understand, if I can write it like this, chicory or whatever in an exploratory research, basically what is happening? A exploratory research helps in building up of hypothesis, right. So, you can, it helps you to come to develop certain kind of a hypothesis, right. So, that is the biggest advantage of an exploratory research. This is one more interesting one is Sherlock Holmes serials, for example. If you have read the book on Sherlock Holmes also, it gives you a pretty good example of the research design. This shows that typically it starts with a crime that needs to be investigated. The initial step is to look for hints which can help establish what has happened. So, looking for hints, observing is a kind of way in which you try to explore what is actually the reason or something, and then from there you move towards building up of an hypothesis and then reaching to a certain conclusion at the end. Okay. So, investigators start focusing their efforts in this direction, performing interviews with witnesses, suspects, right. So, this is a at the later end exploratory, generally people have a confusion that when we conduct a research, it should be only exploratory or it should be only descriptive. No, it is not like that. Every research, in fact, if you start, it starts with basically a kind like an exploratory research if we do not have an idea much about it, but later on we maybe we move on towards a descriptive kind of a design, and slowly this, it could be a combination. It is not necessary at all to have only one kind of research design, and one has to be very clear on that. Okay. Now, what is he saying? Francis Crick says exploratory research is like working in a fog. Fog means when there is fog, mist, so it is not the road is not clear. You do not know where you are going, you are just groping, you are just trying to grope in the fog. Then people learn about it afterwards and think how straightforward it was. Initially when you do not know something, it looks like a Herculean task, it looks like a mountain to be moved, but actually it might be very easy. But still the researcher who has done it, who has explored it, for him it has to be given on the credit, because nobody knew about it. He started it, he found, he gave an idea, he developed it. Okay. It is usually conducted when the researcher, so exploratory research background is, it is usually conducted when the researcher does not know much about the problems, right. Exploratory research is usually conducted at the outset of research projects, as the finally we come to the So, let us see some of the uses, right. First, you have to gain a background information, define the terms, clarify the problems and develop hypothesis, help in developing hypothesis, establish the research priorities. What is the research all about? Isolate the key variables and relationships. So, this is how you move in an exploratory design, right. Gain the insights for developing an approach, establish the priorities for further research. Okay. Now, if you go back and see, now when you have come to this stage of establishing the priorities, by that time the explorer or the researcher conducting the exploratory research has developed certain key insights of the study. Okay. Now, some of the methods what we will be conducting, well, which I will be telling you in the maybe in the next session, is like survey of experts. You must have heard about the pilot surveys being conducted, right. Then using secondary data, understanding it in a quantifiable qualitative manner, right. Then qualitative research, we have some techniques, focus group, which is very important, how focus groups are used, why they are used, and how it can be so helpful in the marketing parlance. At least we can see that. I will give an example how companies have used focus group as a technique to get ideas about certain things which they had no clue at all, for example, right. So, there are certain examples we will see how focus group is very helpful in there. Projective techniques is another wonderful way of understanding into the the consumer's mindset. There are ethnographic studies as well, which I have not mentioned, but ethnographic studies where you try to understand the cultural, the behavior of people, right. So, these are some of the exploratory techniques which are which will be carried on in the next session, which I will be telling you. Well, that is all. Discussing about the next, the exploratory, descriptive and causal in more detail. Okay. I hope you have understood this part, ki what is the research approach and what is the research design and how they are different, and then what are the different research designs, and similarly what were the different research approaches in any study, in a market research study for that. Okay. Thank you so much.